Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blogging Theology. And today I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Femi Owolade. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks. I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming on in your busy day. Now, you recently published an article titled Sharia Law Isn't Taking Over Britain. It's an inevitable legacy of its colonial legal history. And we'll come to that article shortly. And also we're going to look at the religious conflict in Nigeria, as much of your research is on Islamic law in Nigeria. And we're going to look at the accusation of a genocide of Christians in Nigeria, and you're an expert on this. You have knowledge of this subject, so we're going to get your view on this. So just before we get into that, I just want to introduce you to the audience who may not know your work. So Femi is a postdoctoral research associate at the Centre for Regional Economic and Social Research at Sheffield Hallam University here in the UK. He holds a PhD in legal history from King's College London, and his doctoral research, titled Legal Pluralism as a Colonial Project in Africa, analysed the creation of plural legal systems under British colonial rule in northern Nigeria. And he's currently writing a book based on this research, hopefully to be published next year by Routledge. And your broader research interests span legal pluralism, colonialism, race, and religion. And your work has appeared in peer-reviewed journals such as Legal Pluralism and Critical Social Analysis, History in Africa, and the Journal of Higher Education Policy and Management. So I just wanted to put up the article that we're first going to discuss. There we are. This is obviously on the website. Sharia law isn't taking over Britain. It's an inevitable legacy of its colonial legal history. And the first sentence really sums it up so well. Every few years, a familiar anxiety resurfaces in British public discourse that Sharia law is establishing a parallel legal system and threatening the sovereignty of English law. Those fears were reignited following Donald Trump's recent speech to the UN, where he claimed that London wants to go to Sharia law. Yes. So what do you make of that? Why did you feel the need to write this particular article at this time?
Yes, thank you. Thanks once again for having me on Blogging Theology. I think it's a fascinating, platform to debunk a lot of myths and a lot of untruths about subjects that is very, very close to me. Like you just said in the introduction, I have a background in law, to be specific, in Islamic law and English law, especially in the colonial context. And this, when I saw that the UN speech, when I saw Donald Trump's UN speech, I thought it was a really good opportunity to really interject and to give a nuanced explanation as to this anxieties, like I put in that very first statement in the article, this familiar anxiety that resurfaces in British public discourse, and trying to debunk a lot of myth about the parallel legal system that exists, or supposed parallel legal systems that exist in Britain. And I just felt that it was important to put the article out and to sway. I wasn't very optimistic, because a lot of people they have their own views. It's very very political, and it's highly toxic and politicized issue. But I thought by just giving just a little bit of example of how the legal pluralism really works. I thought I could do some good by giving a historical context and drawing on examples of how this system, this legal pluralism as a system really works. And I've been very encouraged by the reaction to this article. It's had over 100,000
really?
tweets. Yes.
Oh, congratulations! That's a for academic work, academic article. That's incredible, actually.
Yes. It's gained a lot of traction, and if you have a look at the comments on the article, it seems like it's got people really talking. And that was what one of my aims. That's one of the aims I had while writing this article, to really get people talking, and to dispel some of the myths that were espoused by Donald Trump in that UN speech.
So what is it? Let's talk about these Sharia courts. Now you debunk these and say they're not courts at all. That you can call them perhaps councils. But what is the distinction? Do they have legal jurisdiction in England? These Sharia courts.
So they actually I don't know where the idea of courts really came from. I think it goes back to this right wing media trying to stoke division, and because these councils, they don't claim to be courts. They are Sharia. That's what they call themselves, and they a lot of the way in which they are organized is quite informal. They don't the decisions that they actually give mostly on cases of divorce and private law. They cannot supersede English law or the decisions made in English court.
Right.
And so there's if you take a look at the article itself, there's been Home Office review into this court in 2018. So 2018 Home Office review into this court that thoroughly into this councils that thoroughly looked at these councils, and they found that a lot of the decisions that these councils make, they have they can't supersede English court decisions, and that makes it very difficult to make a claim that there's a parallel legal system, because ultimately what the English court says would supersede what this council say. And I think it's very important to make this point. The review proposed strong safeguards. So the review did find some practices that were not particularly good, and but the argument is that instead of getting rid of these councils, there should be stronger safeguards into how these councils operate.
Right, and you draw a fascinating parallel. You say English law is capable of accommodating and regulating diverse legal practices without losing its sovereignty. Besides Sharia councils, other faith-based arbitration bodies exist in Britain. I think these are comparable, similar kinds of informal arrangements. You mentioned Beth Dean courts, so the Jewish community. Famously, the Roman Catholic Church has its own tribunals, which basically consider annulments, in marriage annulments under Roman Catholic canon law. And you say none of these institutions undermine the authority of English courts either, and the same applies to so-called Sharia councils. And you say participation is voluntary as well.
Yes, certainly. And just to add to that, there are other religious-based courts or religious-based informal councils, but they haven't got the same media attention. As
why, Femi? I must ask, why is this, Femi? Why do Beth Dean courts, which are remarkably similar to the Islamic arbitration tribunals, why don't they get any attention, and why do the Muslim versions get all the attention, do you think?
Yes, I think it goes to that is the forbidden word of Islamophobia. Just to put it quite. Yes, just to be quite frank, I think it's the Islamophobia, and which is it's on. I mean, as we speak right now, it's really bad. The rise of the right wing ideas, and the right wing ideas that have been pushed by politicians and by the media. There's just anxiety that this discussions of Islamic takeover really push, and it's just to put it quite frankly, it's just Islamophobia.
Now, I do want to point out you are obviously a qualified expert, and you've written some amazing work. But I do want to point out personally that you're actually a Christian, and you have lots of Muslims in your family. The reason I mention that is because just in case anyone was thinking you're motivated by as an Islamic apologist, or you're trying to spin something, you're not even a Muslim. you're a Christian. So, this is not only you're an expert, but you're actually not even of the faith you're talking about. So you have an objectivity, perhaps an independence, perhaps is a better word, an independent thought, which is very interesting.
Yes, very interesting, and it's also very important. And that if you take a look at the viewers can take a look at the comments on this on the article, and it tends to be. It seems like there was a level of mistrust in what I was writing. Like I had like some sort of like agenda that is Islamic agenda that I'm trying to push, which I find it quite funny, but it can be quite dangerous, in that any objective piece or any objective opinion that comes out of people working in academia that tries to provide a nuanced argument into these issues, they're looked at as something that is subjective, or this like an agenda, is an Islamic agenda that's been trying to push. It is quite sad, actually.
It is. So I do applaud you for following the evidence and the facts, rather than following the ideological currents that are pushing us in ever rightward direction. Actually, I mean, perhaps we can move on. It's up to you, but there's much more we could discuss. But I want to, if possible, talk about the religious conflict in Nigeria, as much of your research is on Islamic law in Nigeria, but partly to focus on the colonial legacy and the way that English law operated in Nigeria, northern Nigeria, but also, and perhaps maybe more importantly, the allegation, which is actually in the comments, I've just seen it, that there is an ongoing Christian genocide by Islamist militants happening right now in Nigeria. And then someone well said, at least people are waking up to this garbage, quote, unquote. You've done research in this. Again, you're an expert in what is your there's kind of two strands there, the original legal situation and then the genocide accusation.
Yes, certainly. Thanks for actually giving an opportunity to address this issue, for giving me the opportunity to address this issue. So I have a background in law.
Yes.
And genocide is something that anyone with legal training, we truly understand, especially when it comes to like the definitions of genocide and the ingredients and the things that constitute, genocide. And so genocide by definition, just to use a convenient definition, I mean, there's a wide range of definitions, but one that is convenient and one that can be used for this for the purpose of this conversation is a deliberate and systematic killing or persecution of a large group of people from a particular national, ethnic, and it can even be like religious group, with the aim of destroying that group.
Wow.
And if we are to take this definition and apply it to the Nigerian context, I find it very, very difficult to believe that there is a genocide against Christians.
Right.
Because the killings on the supposed targeted killings that have been pushed by the media and politicians happen on both sides. They are indiscriminate killing. It's not it's not singling any ethnic or religious groups in
so you're saying Christians are killing Muslims in Nigeria as well?
So Muslims are, there are some instances of Christians killing Muslims. Nigeria is a very, very complex. I mean, I can attempt to give a very brief description of
Please.
the religious composition of Nigeria,
Yes.
which can actually go back to the colonial period.
Yes.
So Nigeria is divided into 4 main regions. And those 4 main regions have the 4 main regions are the north region, the northern Nigeria, which has a Muslim majority population, and then you have the middle Nigeria, the middle belt. They call it middle belt, which has a population of mixed Muslims and Christians. You have the southeast region, which has a population of Christians, majority Christian population. And then you have the southwest, which has a mixed Christian and Muslim population. And this geographical makeup was very, very much artificial. It's something that was created, during the colonial period. So Nigeria was colonized, by the British between 1900 to 1960. And when this artificial demarcations or regions were brought together, there have always been conflicts. There were always conflicts, religious conflicts, ethnic conflicts. For so many reasons. One of the reasons is the dissatisfaction with the dissatisfaction of the popular masses with the leaders, and another reason is just ethnic conflicts has been very, very common in Nigeria, and throughout the colonial period and to the independence period. So Nigeria attained its independence in 1960. It's been independent for 65 years now. In the 65 years of Nigeria's independence, there have been killings on all sides. All the 4 sides I've just, all the 4 regions I've just described now, there have been killings, Muslim to Christian killings, Christian to Christian killings, Muslims to Muslim killings. I mean, I'm just going to give an example of the Boko Haram, insurgency, which is, it's about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like a lot of the viewers will know about the Chibok girls that were kidnapped by Boko Haram 10 years ago, and a lot of the victims in that in Boko Haram's insurgency and the kidnappings were Muslims.
Wow.
So it's
I didn't know that. I'd not been. We perhaps not been told that. That wasn't the impression that was given at all in the media. I mean, but you're saying, in fact, it's like talking. I mean, on a different thing. Talk about ISIS, the victims of ISIS. Most of the victims were Muslims. In the Middle East, it's not Christians or others; it's Muslims who are the overwhelming victims because they takfir and kill other Muslims. I'm not saying there weren't non-Muslims; of course there were, and what they did was wrong. But nevertheless, the picture is slightly more nuanced than we popularly see it.
Yes, and it's this idea of a Christian genocide is one that I find to be very, very interesting in a very nefarious way, because it's one that the right wing Christian politicians in the United States, like Donald Trump, of course, have been pushing, and it's very damaging to the Muslim Christian relationships in Nigeria. So it's actually making things worse, because there's been the relationship, Muslim Christian relationship in Nigeria has been fragile for a long time now, and this sort of rhetoric and this that's been pushed by this Christians, Christian fundamentalists and right wing politicians is making that even worse. And
can you give us a sense to those like me who are very ignorant of these matters, when you're in Nigeria and you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, and there's a temptation to violence, what's in their minds? Is it simply tit for tat revenge, or is there some dispute over I don't know, resources or land or whatever. Well, but what is at least the motivating factor in their minds, or is it more complicated than that?
It's very complicated, and there've been studies on this. So people are trying to find what's the. I mean, there are a few contributing factors. I think ideology is one that is certainly very, very important. So you have Islamic fundamentalists and Islamic fundamentalists. I know that itself is, or Islamic extremists can be like a contested and a very difficult phrase to unpack, or a word to unpack. But there certainly is something that can be said about ideology, like a battle of ideology in Nigeria. And I think another causing factor, another factor is corruption in Nigeria. So Nigeria is unfortunately one of the most corrupt countries in the world.
Wow.
And there's a huge disparity between the rulers or the leaders. I tend to call them rulers, because democracy in Nigeria it's not very strong, and the masses. So there's the aristocrats, rulers, and the masses. There certainly is a big disparity between them, and there's a lot of dissatisfaction on the part of the commoners, the masses, and the religion is used as something that can be religious is viewed as something that can be used to fight the rulers.
So are the rulers, excuse my ignorance, the rulers, are they a particular religious view, identity?
Yes, it's very mixed. So it's another thing that I think this rhetoric of a Christian genocide is very damaging to you, because it's almost creates the impression that the people in power or the rulers are Muslims, and they are, because like I defined genocide earlier, it's a deliberate and systematic killing of a large group of people. And the impression of this genocide narrative is that the rulers are complicit or are the ones aiding that killing. But that cannot be true, because a lot of the ruling class in Nigeria are mixed. You have Christians and you have Muslims.
Right.
And in fact, the Christian to Muslim ratio in Nigeria is about 50-50.
50-50. That's pretty.
Yes. Yeah,
it's balanced, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite even. Yeah, it's quite even. Maybe 48, maybe 48, and then you have some people that are traditional worshippers, people that believe in African traditional religion, but it's a very even split.
Amazing.
And yeah.
Could you? I mean, you said you had the privilege of growing up in a multi-religious family, clearly, and you did your PhD on legal pluralism, particularly Sharia and English law in colonial Nigeria. So what insights, what role does or did and does as a legacy English law have?
Yes, so English law it still has a strong legacy, strong in terms of the procedure of law, not in terms of the substance of law. So there's something that us lawyers and legally trained people call the substantive law and the procedural law.
Right.
So the procedural law, are things like the performative aspects. So when you go to like a court, the lawyers, they wear the wig, and and the gown. And how laws should be performed. It's a performative aspect. So I think on that note, it's still the legacy of English colonialism is still quite strong. In that most lawyers, all lawyers in Nigeria, they have to study English law, and they have to go to law school. But when it comes to the substantive aspects of law, it's not very strong. So in the Nigeria, the legal system is as different forms of law, like the Islamic law is being practiced, English law, and more customary law. So customary law are the customs, so the African based laws, and just going back to the points that you made earlier, I come from a family that has mixed religious makeup.
Yeah,
I have cousins and that are Muslims. It's a very multi-religious family, and you find that a lot in many places. You find that in many places in Nigeria,
right,
where religion is not really an issue,
right.
and that's gives me the personal drive, to debunk, this issue of a Christian genocide as well, because I see that even though there are some parts in Nigeria, I have to admit there are some parts in Nigeria where they have some religious conflict, but for lots of parts in Nigeria, Muslims and Christians cohabit together, and there's the legal system is plural. You have different forms of law.
Well, you mentioned that in your coming back to your article again. Sharia law isn't taking over Britain; it's an inevitable legacy of its colonial legal history. And just going to the very end, post-colonial legal pluralism. In post-colonial multi-faith society like Britain, legal pluralism is not a sign of fragmented legal authority. It's an acknowledgement of social reality. The presence of Sharia in modern Britain reflects a society still negotiating how to govern cultural and religious differences through law, as the empire once did. Other post-colonial societies have accepted this. You mentioned India, which have personal law systems for Hindus, Muslims, and Christians, coexisting under a single constitution, and so on. And he said that the same question now faces Britain. The challenge is not whether to recognize the arbitrating powers of Sharia councils, but how to regulate them fairly, ensuring every citizen, regardless of faith, can exercise their rights within the boundaries of English law. And yet even that seemingly moderate suggestion, I would suggest, I say this because you remember the example of Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, who some years ago, very timidly, as is Rowan Williams' style, suggested that some aspects of Sharia might be recognized by English law. And there's a huge eruption in the British media about this, and the idea was quickly shelved in this kind of panic that ensued. But which seemed to be very unreasonable, because what he was saying was simply, as you put it, recognizing social realities.
Yes, certainly. And it just goes back to just the beginning of our conversation and the introduction of this article itself. It's just this familiar anxiety that resurfaces, I think, goes to just the rise in Islamophobia, which it's unreasonable. It's something that is unreasonable. It makes it very difficult to have objective opinions, and to just think about this thing to think about how social reality in a multifaceted and a multicultural society like Britain would require legal pluralism. It's just it's a conversation that is going to be ongoing for, but I would like to see a British community whereby that anxiety is just not a thing anymore.
And it's interesting, you have examples of your family, if they're still in Nigeria, I mean, it were coexistence despite the aggro and violence. Nevertheless, you have mentioned that many communities and families of Christians and Muslims all mixed up together do coexist. So in fact, there is a good role model there, despite all the negatives that are also happening.
Yes, certainly. And India is also like another example. Like this arrangement exists in India today, and they are having debates. They're actually currently having debates on how to better regulate other religious based laws. but the debate itself is not to acknowledge the existence of these laws, but how to better regulate them.
Right.
And but in the as things are in Britain right now, it seems like there's just not there's not the acknowledgement of this different laws itself. Especially, let's be actually specific. There's been a lot of people don't have problems with Jewish-based laws or Christian. We have to be very specific and very frank now. It's just the acknowledgement of Islamic law is something that a lot of people don't want to do. They don't want to acknowledge something that Islamic, law should even exist.
Yeah, and the irony is that the Jewish law, the halakha, is actually remarkably similar to the Sharia when you actually get into the details of it. The way it analyzes legal questions and so on is very similar. And so many of the conclusions are very similar between Orthodox Judaism, and Islam when it comes to Sharia / the halakha, the laws. So it can't be because Islam is so different. Islamic law is so different from Beth Din courts or the Roman Catholic tribunal. Is not. It's actually very similar, particularly the Jewish one. But as you have repeatedly suggested, it's Islamophobia rather than any rational basis for objections. It's not so alien. We're quite happy with Beth Din courts, but then you should be happy with Sharia, not courts, but are they? In fact, you call them Beth Din courts. Interestingly, is that correct? Because they're not courts when it comes to Sharia; they're tribunals. They don't have that legal standing, do they?
Yes, no, you're certainly right. It's a forum. They're all forums of civil disputes, and some it's tribunal, and that's one thing that yes, I think it's quite unfortunate that there's just this anxiety and just lack of rational thinking, when it comes to just Islam in general, just the legal system, the culture, and the people as well.
And you, as I said before, I don't want to labor this point, but it is interesting that you are a Christian as well. So you're not coming at it from someone who is an apologist or trying to spin something. You're coming from it someone who's not even Muslim, and yet because of your familiarity with other family members and other people you've known in Nigeria who are Muslim, you know what you're talking about because you've lived with the reality of it all your life, presumably, and so it's something you can speak about.
Yes. So so it's very, very interesting, and I have to applaud your work once again for you. I think you're doing remarkable work, and I'm very, very thrilled that you gave me this opportunity to speak about this article in detail.
No, I'm very honored that you've had time to come on, and the article itself is in the description below. Do folks have a look at it. Do add your comments to the other comments at the bottom of the article if you wish. And I'm very grateful that you're setting the record straight about so-called Sharia councils, courts rather, and the reality, and also about the alleged genocide of Christians in Nigeria, which is not happening, despite the propaganda from a lot of the media to that effect. So very grateful to your expertise and sharing this with us, indeed. So Dr. Femi, thank you for your time, inshallah, and we maybe see you again soon. So look forward to your book, by the way, that comes out next year as well. Book is based on your research. And sorry, tell me a bit more about the book that's coming out next year, if you don't mind.
Yes. So the book is based on my my PhD research. So it's going to be on legal pluralism. The title is Legal Pluralism as a Colonial Project in Africa, a case study of Northern Nigeria. Wow. So it's going to be a historical research, and I'm looking at how the British colonial authority created a plural legal system, and from 1900s to 1960, and the legacies of that particular system in the current Nigerian Nigeria.
Inshallah. Well, maybe if you're free, you can come on and talk about that new book when published next year, God willing. So thank you very much, Dr. Femi, for your time, and I hope everyone's enjoyed and learned from this podcast. So until next time, thank you very much, sir.